It's an exciting time to be a fantasy hockey GM, which is why you're tapped into your daily 30-minute source where we're diving deep into the Metro division with all of the predictions that you need to know. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy fanatics, and welcome back inside the lab to the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, where our division-wide breakdown continues with the Metro 8-1 best bets and everything that you need to know. Shout out to the everydayers who continue to hold us down and make us their first listen every single day. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, where new customers that download the FanDuel app and place a $5 wager and it hits $300 in bonus bets back in the account. Mr. Roden, before we get to this spicy Metro division, odds, our previews and predictions, burning questions, how about a question answered in Minnesota with your boy, mega deal, 8-year, $136 million.
Yeah, baby.
Right over to you. I know you're excited to talk about this one. What's the fantasy takeaway here? Because also Matt Zuccarello on the shelf for 6 to 8 weeks. Lots going on in mini. Let's start with the positive first, I'd say.
Oh, baby, this is a good time to be a Wild fan. And I know there's a lot of people out there, a little bit hesitant on how the contract actually pans out. It being 17 million AAV, 136 million over the next 8 years, the highest paid player in the National Hockey League. And just for context, Leon Draisaitl, he's beating out Leon Draisaitl now, who was at 14 AAV. You had Connor McDavid at 12.5. Austin Matthews at 13.25. Kaprizov, now the highest paid player in the National Hockey League. And the way it's structured is really interesting to me. I mean, when July 1st comes around, he's going to have the biggest smile on his face because the actual contract itself, he's only getting paid, I believe, $1 million per year for those 8 years. But the signing bonus, $18.1 million on July 1st for both 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. 18.1 million. It's absolutely astonishing. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are saying, the Minnesota Wild haven't learned from their mistakes from what happened with Zach Parise and Ryan Suter and having to buy them out. It's 17 million. It's an overpay. But what do you expect them to do? It's either you're going to have to trade him. You're going to have to trade him away or let him walk in free agency.
Right.
You have to overpay this player because he's that good. And obviously the injury concerns are a major thought process while negotiating and doing these contracts. But with the salary cap going up significantly over the next 3 years, they're still going to have a lot in cap space. They had to get this deal done. So I love it. I don't care if it's a little bit of an overpayment for Kirill Kaprizov. To me, he is one of the best players in the world and deserves to be paid as one of the best players in the world. Obviously, now the conversation goes to, what is Connor McDavid going to get? What is he going to get on his next contract? The same could be said for a guy like Artemi Panarin, who over the last 5 years has put up 90-plus points consecutively, one of them being 120 points for career high. What is a guy like Jack Eichel going to get on his next contract? Kyle Connor as well. A lot of interest UFAs going into next year. And with this Kaprizov contract, it's going to stir up the pot a little bit when it comes to negotiations.
Most definitely. It's also going to just stir up fantasy value. This was huge for the other pieces in this Minnesota lineup that you and I have been talking about. And that's really what it boils down to. And if you want more of an in-depth analysis on the Minnesota Wild, tap into Tuesday's episode where we took a look at every team in the Central. Steel is very high on these Minnesota Wild. I am not as high, but this is a big deal, obviously, and huge for the success of this team. So if you're a little bit wary perhaps before, now you might be reinvesting a little bit more heavily in the Gustafsons, the Matt Boldies of the world. Let's see what the Minnesota Wild do. Metro Division preview. Number 8, it's a slam dunk. Pittsburgh Penguins are going to be the worst team in this division. It hurts me to say it. And here's the question I have for you, Steele. The burning question, maybe not so burning. After Sid, who do you take a look at? Ricard Raquel, Brian Rust? I guess so, that top line. But after that, maybe I'm staying away from this team altogether if the name's not Sidney Crosby. They come in at 8 for me, Steele. They are going to be in tough this year.
Yeah, they come at 8 for me as well, and I actually kind of went back and forth with the Philadelphia Flyers in this position,
They're at
just
7.
because I'll talk about them when we get to number 7. But yeah, Pittsburgh Penguins coming at number 8. It really is thin when it gets to the bottom 7. I want to even say, like, you talked about Anthony Mantha as being a sleeper pick for this team, and he's playing on
Deep
the
sleeper.
second line with Evgeny Malkin and Ville Koivunen. This is a very, very this is a very, big loss for the Pittsburgh Penguins going into the season with Sidney Crosby pretty, on the last stretch of his career. Tristan Jarry hasn't really bounced back in the way that we thought he would have last season or even the season prior to that. After Sidney Crosby, I think it has to be Rickard Rakell. This is a guy that still throws out over 100 hits, a significant amount of blocks as well. He had 60-plus points last year. After them, you could probably go to the blue line with either Brian Rust as well, of course, but Erik Karlsson or Chris Letang as one of your, Chris Letang more as like your 5th or 6th defenseman, maybe a bench defenseman.
Right. Yeah.
Karlsson a little bit more value on his side, but don't expect big things from the Pittsburgh Penguins. I really just see them being a fire sale team when it comes to the trade deadline in March.
The Pittsburgh Penguins across the board, just very average, 19th in goals for in terms of goals against. It wasn't pretty either. I believe they sat right in the middle of the NHL as well in terms of goals against. Actually, they weren't too bad in goals against. Actually, that's a complete lie. 3rd most goals against in the NHL. So there you go. The underlying numbers point to it as well. And fantasy-wise, it's an easy take. And we can move on here to the Philadelphia Flyers. If it's not Sid, be wary of what you're doing. Rickard Rakell, 70 points last year on the button. The Philadelphia Flyers here come in at 6, and Matvei Michkov is where my mind goes right away, Steele. Not to put like the success of this team squarely on a 21-year-old kid's shoulders, but when I see 63 points in 83 points in 80 games last year, Steele, at that age, 4th in Calder voting, my question is, what is the ceiling for this player in his second year? Because if he's popping 63 and we like this team even better this year, a little bit in terms of their younger players having a little bit more under them, maybe the ceiling is 80, 85 points. Is that too much to expect? This kid's the real deal, but the Flyers come in at 7. Mess on the back end and no goalie in sight. Classic in Philly.
I think he's going to absolutely explode. He is going to go beast mode for the Philadelphia Flyers this season. I think you can expect 80 points. And as much as I really like Matvei Michkov, I think he's going to be a really, really good player. I think, when we get 5-6 years down the road, he could be one of the best players in the National Hockey League. However, with that being said, I still think this is Travis Konechny's team. I think everything will run through him. Sure. He's coming off a career year, 76 points last year, 27 years old, just getting into his prime. When I look at the top 6 forward group for the Philadelphia Flyers, I like it a lot. Yeah. I like Owen Tippett and what he brings. I'm still waiting for him to really have that breakout season. Like I just spoke about Travis Konechny. Matvei Michkov is going to go nuclear this season as well. You got the strong presence of veteran guys like Sean Couturier in that top 6 as well. You get Rick Tocchet behind the bench, which really just changes the culture and the dynamic of the coach-player relationship compared to what they had with John Tortorella. So while this is still going to be a team that struggles throughout the season, and we've seen it over the last 2 years, have gone on multiple 8, 9, 10-game losing skids, it's going to be a little bit better, but it's a work in progress still, because with Trevor Zegras in the lineup, we're still not sold on him if he's fully, mentally prepared once again, from how he came into the league. If he can get back to that stage of his career, you still have young guys like Bobby Brink, Nikita Grabenkin, Noah Cates, who you like a lot, Jamie Drysdale, who I'm not sold on fantasy value wise. Still a lot of missing pieces to me, but that top 6 forward group is pretty solid, and I think you can see a lot of those guys, Konechny, Michkov, and I'm going to throw Tippett into the mix as being some of the highest valuable players from the Philadelphia Flyers.
That second line is intriguing. Is it going to pan out with Zegras, Michkov, and Tippett? I don't know, but there is a whole lot of elite offensive value there, and those 3 bring a little bit of a different style in each of their games, all very offensive-minded. Is it going to pan out? Rick Tocchet won't tolerate it long. However, they're a lock at number 7. and we'll talk about the rest of the Metro division. If you missed our live draft, tap into that from Wednesday's episode. We got another draft coming up tonight, Steele. Fantasy hockey is back, baby, and so are we. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, where the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has a can't-miss offer for you where new customers that bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5. If it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Something Steele and I do on the regular live in-game parlay, same-game parlays, everything that you need to stack that pocketbook up, including fast, easy, and secure payouts. FanDuel is your go-to source. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We hope everyone out there is getting pumped for their fantasy draft. We hope your teams are successful throughout the season. We're super pumped for this draft as well. Multiple drafts this upcoming week. To number 6, Flip. To number 6 on the list.
Now it gets interesting, doesn't it?
Now it does get in. No, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple for me. Number 6 is the New York Islanders.
Yes.
The bottom 3 teams in the Metropolitan. It's those 3 guys. It's those 3 teams.
Yep.
There's no other way to beat around the bush here.
I agree.
It's all 3 of these teams are looking pretty abysmal. There's nothing really special going on. I know we talked about Matthew Barzal being a really significant sleeper pick. If he stays healthy, he could potentially get back to 70, 80 points from what we saw in his rookie year. Bo Horvat is a guy who fills out those peripherals, 60-plus points, plays on the top line, first power play. Ilya Sorokin, still still a really solid goaltender. I don't think I had him in the top 10. You may have, but I didn't.
I'm at 10, I think, maybe 9.
Yeah, he's still up there. He's still a significant goaltender. And again, I think when you look at this team, there's not a lot that really you can fall in love with.
I agree.
We talked about Matthew Schaefer potentially being as one of those prospect rookie players on the blue line, but yeah, they've fallen for number 6 for me. They've kind of fallen off from how much I've really supported them from when we first started doing this podcast.
Matthew Schaefer is a very interesting talent that he is really showing that they have got a good one here with New York. He's most likely going to stick for that starting 10 games. After that, I don't know if he'll stick around. He is a good one. They got a good one. He's not ready to change the makeup of this entire franchise overnight by one defenseman. However, they are starting to point the needle in the right direction, but there's just far too many risky options here fantasy-wise for me, Steele. Drouin, Duclair, Palmieri, all of these guys to me seem like, look, and I understand the upside with a guy like Drouin. All of these guys to me are really nice streams or waiver wire options that you plug and play. If they stick, you keep them. If not, you let them go. They were really bad on the penalty kill last year, and when you're just lopsided on special teams, it takes away from your ability to score 5-on-5, and that's obviously kind of been the MO of this team. Really hard to get behind. Never had secondary scoring. That's the question that still holds true for me with this team, because I keep to bring in these burning questions. Will they ever find secondary scoring? Then with some more bounce. Look, Anders Lee is hurt again. We were looking at him as a sleeper. Yeah. So many sleepers on this team. That might mean you're taking a prolonged nap, and that's not a good look here in the fantasy game. So
that was a good one.
I did want to say thank you. I did want to say this though. I agree. 8, 7, 6, that's locked in. Now here, when I look at just the Eastern Conference in general, I see 10 playoff ready teams. And in this division, Jackets, Capitals, Rangers, Devils, and Hurricanes. Those are the 5 teams for sure. Then you look out at the Atlantic division, Maple Leafs, Lightning, Panthers, Senators, Canadiens. That's 5 playoff teams in my opinion, and that's not even including the Detroit Red Wings. So what I'm trying to say at here, you're going to start splitting hairs a little bit with these teams that might be outside the top couple of spots. They're all going to be really close, and it's going to be a bloodbath, and I can't wait for it. With that said, Steele, and I wanted to put them higher, I just don't see it. Really good team, and they're on the rise, but with Jet Greaves as the number 1 option, I can't put the Blue Jackets higher. I really want to. And if this was a fantasy thing, we love what they're bringing fantasy-wise, but this is predicting how the standings shake out, and they just still have too many young players, and Jet Greaves has 7 games in the NHL. So hit me with the Columbus Blue Jackets at number 5, because is Jet Greaves a true number 1? That is a big question coming into this season.
I also have the Blue Jackets at number 5, and I really like what Dean Evison has done behind the bench as well. Again, changing the culture from a former John Tortorella coach team. I know not recently, but still, I got to throw all that shade at John Tortorella as much as possible. But yeah, I mean, some really, really good assets for any fantasy hockey team. We talked about Zach Werenski, second round lock. Kirill Marchenko, I think he's actually fallen down the draft board. I think he's falling a lot more than where I would have him, but 74 points last year at 24 years old, 207 shots. You can't miss on a guy like that. You spoke about Kent Johnson, and also a player that could go nuclear this season as well. Really good year, 57 points in 68 games. It was kind of sad to see him miss the time with those injuries as well, but I think such a solid presence, and has clearly developed and got better and better as the years go on. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I wasn't quite sold on him. I am sold on him now based on what from our conversations with you, conversations I've had with Troy online on Twitter. Also, shout out to Troy. Really good, solid players here. I think even you go down the list at a guy like Matthew Olivier, for especially banger leagues, 139 penalty minutes, 306 hits, 111 shots, still had 32 points. Obviously going to be one of those guys you draft with your last 4 picks somewhere, maybe even goes a little bit higher depending on the format, of course. But in this case, they're just not better than the top 4 teams that you and I have here. So
totally agree.
They come in at number 5. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I actually do have them missing the playoffs very slightly. It is going to be close. It is going to be a bloodbath, like you said. However, they do miss the playoffs once again.
I totally agree with this take, Steele. Their time is coming. Until I see something out of that blue paint that really makes me believe you're going to hang in this division full of killers. Because I am buying into this New York Rangers bounce back. I really am. And I'm going to segue it into this. I'm sticking to my guns on the Washington Capitals. And I hope I don't take too much heat here putting them at 4. I gave you your respect yesterday for putting the Minnesota Wild up at 2. And this might be a similar situation where, you were kind of counting out a little bit, not counting them out, but not buying into the Avs as much. I'm not buying into the Washington Capitals as much. And I mentioned it. Why? All of the really good stepping out seasons, 5 of them. Small sample size for most of those players. Logan Thompson is a good goaltender. I'm not here to hate on any of these players because this team still should return to the postseason. I see them as the top wild card team 100%. In my opinion.
100%.
And this is my last take with it. They come in at 4. I see the regression in guys like Protas, Connor McMichael, and that's fantasy-wise. Not exactly in terms of them being able to always win games every single night, but what I am going to put more stock into is the Rangers, the Devils, the Hurricanes. I see those 3 as better teams, better overall rosters. That's my take on it. You're right. Lots of good fantasy options still here with the Washington Capitals. However, for me, they come in at 4. But like I said, now we're getting really, really close here. We're going to be within a handful of points, aside from the team that I think comes in on top.
And I'll speak to the Washington Capitals and, of course, the top 3 after the break on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Again, stay tuned in for that live draft. Of course, also breaking down the rest of the divisions, Atlantic and Pacific, for the rest of the week on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip, I tend to agree with you here. I also have the Washington Capitals at the 4 spot. I also have them being in that first wild card position. I have them making the playoffs. I'm not sure if it's in that second or first wild card position, but they will be a postseason team. And I think the difference is where you and I kind of got maybe lost or maybe disagreed with one another here was the fantasy value of these players. While I do believe that they're not going to get back to 111 points, they're not going to be the top team in the Metropolitan, they're still going to be a playoff team. And I do see them regressing in the standings. I don't see them regressing with what they bring fantasy value wise. When I look at this team, I think Alexi Protas is going to get all the opportunities he can possibly get, playing in the top 6, playing on that top line in Washington, exactly with what he did last year, playing with Dylan Strome, playing with Alex Ovechkin, Pierre-Luc Dubois, all those guys, Tom Wilson in the mix, of course. Even at 39 years old, for what Ovechkin was able to accomplish last season,
No
you
doubt.
can't dismiss him. He's
No
going to
doubt.
be a 40-goal scorer. He's going to be a 70-point player if he stays healthy. And he only played 65 games last year, so I think he can do that. Dylan Strome, like I said, is a mini Nicholas Backstrom. Just such a great vision, such a great playmaker and passer for all those guys he plays with. Jacob Chikrin, solid defenseman right there alongside John Carlson. So while I do believe they're going to regress down the standings, Connor McMichael, Alexi Protas, Pierre-Luc Dubois, all these guys are so solid fantasy value-wise that I'm not ready to say that they're going to regress. And I understand that maybe that's a little bit of a contradiction because of what I'm saying about the standings, but I think you've got to separate the two. So I think there's still a ton of fantasy value with Washington. However, they will fall down the standings and be the fourth team in the Metro.
Can't wait to drop the puck on this so we can start seeing it. You and I have been talking about this every single day, basically, since the cup was lifted, and we're running out of angles here still. And we want to make sure you guys are ready to go, so we continue to break them down anyway. Hey, I don't know if you saw JT Miller's dealing with an injury.
I did.
New York Rangers come in at number 3.
Should be okay.
They come in at number 3 for me, and I really do think he is critical to this team's success. And that's not a bold take or me coming out here and trying to say I'm the only one to think this. I think he is key to the mentality shift here, that obviously there was a lot of off-ice distractions for a team that has kind of been lurking around there as the top dog in the Eastern Conference for a couple of years. And Igor Shesterkin is also key to the success of a team that last year finished right in the middle in goals against, and I think they really need to tighten that up on the back end. They bring in Gavrikov. They shake things up a little bit, Steele. I think that there's only one way but up. And I'm excited to see what Igor Shesterkin does this season. And I know I've seen him go as high as the 3rd goaltender in drafts. I think that's really fair. That's exactly where I would put Igor Shesterkin. I think you and I agree. Hellebuck, Vazzy, and then probably him. So this all checks out. They will be better. They're going to be one of the top 3 teams in this division. I just think the 2 teams on top just have a little bit more firepower.
Yeah, they do. And, I actually have the New Jersey Devils at number 3. I have the Rangers at number 2. Okay. And for me, it came down to the head coaching, the coaching style as well. I think when you compare Sheldon Keefe to Mike Sullivan, by the way, Mike Sullivan being in for now Peter Laviolette last season, who basically gave up on the team with 2 months to go. I think Mike Sullivan is going to outcoach a guy like Sheldon Keefe. I also think when you look at the goaltending, you're going to take a guy in Igor Shesterkin over Jacob Markstrom every single day of the week.
Yes,
the bottom 6 for me, the Rangers, I would lean toward the Rangers over the New Jersey Devils. I just think those are the things that it comes down to for me is coaching the goaltenders of why I have the Rangers a little bit higher. And I did see the JT Miller video. I did see him get injured. I believe he is okay. He should be okay to start the season. It didn't look too bad. From what we, comparing it to a guy like Alexander Barkov, who is out for the season now. Yeah. I have the Devils at number 3, and it just came down to coaching. It came down to the style of play, and it comes down to goalies as well. Not to say that there's a lot of there's not a lot of valuable pieces in New Jersey. We know Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier, Nico Hischier. I think, again, when you get to Dawson Mercer, you get to a guy like Andre Palat, Cody Glass, it starts to really fall off compared to what the New York Rangers have in the bottom 6. Okay. And that is why I have them at number 3. I have the Rangers at number 2. I'm really buying into JT Miller as the captain here. I'm buying into Artemi Panarin. Like I said, 5 straight seasons of 90 plus points with a career high of 120 points in there as well. Vincent Trocheck, who just does it all for the team. I mean, we talk about his value in fantasy hockey.
Banger League beauty.
He's exactly what you get from a guy like Joel Eriksson Ek. Face-off wins, hits, blocks, shots on net, penalty minutes, everything you need. Will Cooley, you spoke about as well, being one of those sleeper guys who's getting a top 6 opportunity with JT Miller and Artemi Panarin on that top line. Mika Zibanejad in the mix, of course, who I spoke about as a sleeper option. I think the bottom 6 in New York is very interesting. You have a fourth line with Matt Rempe and Sam Carrick, who can, be those fourth line grinders, wear you down. Obviously, they got to keep their you want them to lose their head too much with being thrown in the penalty box, but Gabriel Perreault is a really good sneaky option potentially if he makes this lineup, which I believe he will. He's been really good in the preseason for them. Yuso Parson, who was with the Nashville Predators for some time, liked his time with them. So I'm intrigued to see how he plays alongside a guy like Gabe Perreault who has a lot of skill. So I really like the Rangers team. You know I'm high on the Rangers team over the last few seasons. Number 2 for me.
Bottom 6, I'm going to disagree with you. I like Connor Brown. I like Andre Palat. I really like Cody Glass. Stefan Nason is going to return and spread some more depth down that lineup as well. It's close. We're splitting hairs here. The key to me with the New Jersey Devils is Jack Hughes, and that's a pretty obvious one. If this guy's healthy, he's a 100-point player, and he's one of the best in the NHL. As much as we love the Breadman, they don't have that high-end, high-flying offensive talent with the youth that Jack Hughes brings to the table. That's one player, and he has not been able to stay healthy. So that's how I look at it. I also look at it thusly, Steele, to tie this back through odds. The Washington Capitals come in at plus 600 for the division. New York Rangers plus 550. New Jersey Devils plus 300. And then the team we both have at number 1, the Carolina Hurricanes, plus 115. Of all of the division odds, favorites, they are the lowest favorite of any other division favorite, more than the Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers, and Tampa Bay Lightning, who are currently the Atlantic Division favorites. These odds are going to be in flux, and it's really a food for thought moment. It's just interesting that at plus 115, clearly, we're not the only ones giving this team a lot of credit, Steele. A team that has now led the NHL, I believe, in 3 straight seasons with least shots against per game. And I know I keep bringing this up, but 24.9 shots against a game in today's NHL is seriously impressive. Now they bring in a guy like Keandre Miller, who was clearly lost in the sauce in New York. I think he really did need a change of scenery. This could be huge for their blue line. I don't know about his fantasy value yet until we see what goes on with his offensive capability. Jacob Slavin, Sean Walker, Keandre Miller, your boy Nikishin, Shane Gostisbehere. This is a really good blue line. This team reloaded with Nikolai Ehlers up front. You know how I feel about Seth Jarvis. We've covered the Jackson Blake, Stankovens, and your boy Svechnikov. We really don't even need to get into it. This team's for real. And did they do enough to get them over the hump? That's the biggest burning question of this whole division, I'd say, Steele, because we know the MO. They get right there, they get to the Eastern Conference Final, and they fold like a cheap suit. So I think they've reloaded very well here. We love Rod Bindermore behind the bench. I think this could be their year. We'll find out very soon.
Yes, we will. And I compare them to the Dallas Stars. I mean, these are 4 lines, obviously the top 9, but these are 4 lines that you can just roll one after another.
It's a good point.
And Brind'Amour is one of our favorite coaches in the National Hockey League, along with Paul Maurice, probably up there with John Cooper as well. You know, some Eastern Conference coaches. I compare them to the Dallas Stars just because of how easily you can roll these lines significantly. Nikolai Ehlers coming off a really good season, finally healthy. You know, the flexibility of having a right wing center and left wing for a guy like Seth Jarvis when it comes to dual eligibility or even triple eligibility. Sebastian Aho, one of the best underrated centermen in the league. Still, we expect good things from Stankoven and Jackson Blake. Still waiting for that breakout season for Andrei Svechnikov. But you get into the bottom 6, and we kind of talked about Taylor Hall and some sneaky value with him. Jesper Kotkaniemi. You still get to that veteran leadership presence from Jordan Staal and Martin Nook. The blue line is always solid. I'm really hoping Kochetkov can impress me a lot more this year from what I saw last season, and hopefully Frederik Andersen can stay healthy once again, or stay healthy this season. Yeah. I really like this Carolina team. That's why they come at number 1 for both you and I. Thank you so much. That is the Metropolitan Division breakdown odds as well. You got to go with the Carolina Hurricanes. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the 2025 NHL season preview on Locked On NHL, a 6-episode series bringing you the best local insight to make you the most informed NHL fan heading into the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.